Professional Pricing Society's podcast series. I am Lisa Fisher, Senior Director with the Professional Pricing. Today we are featuring Alex Shartsis, CEO of Price. Today's topic of discussion is centered around an upcoming breakout track featured at the PPS 29th Annual Spring Pricing Workshops and Conference in Chicago. The presentation title is Artificial Intelligence in Revenue Management. Hello, Alex, and welcome, and thanks for joining us. We're happy to have you, and we look forward to all of your pricing expertise you're going to share. If you would just please briefly introduce yourself and speak about how your career in pricing came to be.
Sure. Well, thank you, Lisa, for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So I didn't think I was going to go into pricing when I started out, but through some fortunate circumstances, ended up doing a lot of pricing projects at startups that I worked at over the last decade or so, and realized how important it was to the success of the business. And when I was at a artificial intelligence company called Drawbridge that worked in the marketing and online advertising space, I technology there that we used every day that you didn't have access to if you were out in sort of more brick and mortar businesses. And so we took my pricing experience from the past, combined it with that technology, and with a co-founder, Young and Shin, started Perfect Price.
Excellent, excellent. So let's jump right in. I'm sure our listeners want to hear all about artificial intelligence. Can you describe for the listeners how artificial intelligence is different? It's a topic that's kind of on the forefront of all discussions lately in the business arena. So talk to us a little bit about how you feel it's different.
Thanks, Lisa. That's a great question. It's a question we get a lot. I think there are a couple different ways of thinking about artificial intelligence, and I think a lot of companies are probably very familiar with all the marketing buzz around it. It is actually a different approach. There are different kinds of artificial intelligence, but in general, artificial intelligence is where you're not explicitly telling a computer what to do. You're letting the computer train itself, or a model train itself based on the raw data. So it's very different than traditional methods. So things you'd learn in an operations research PhD program that I learned at business school in our operations research classes. It's more than another tool in the toolkit because the focus of AI and the way AI is so effective is because it's learning from it can not only get started quickly, but it can also continue to learn after you start running it. So it's a very different and much more flexible and powerful technology than what people are used to.
Got it. And where have you seen AI? Have you seen it been successful?
Well, so it's interesting because a lot of people think that AI is a sort of science fiction thing. I mean, maybe they watched, it's been in a couple movies recently. Her, I think, was one of them. And you think, oh, well, this is the future, right? This is going to be, in 2100, AI will be doing stuff. But if you use Facebook, if you use Google, if you use Uber, if you use eBay, if you use PayPal, all these companies use AI very successfully today. Some of them on pricing. I think one of the places that AI was originally the most widely used, which is where we came from, is the online digital ad business. So every online ad that you see on your phone, on your computer, on a web page, everything is powered by AI. I think if you look back 10 years, 2007, none of them were. 0% of digital ads were bought by AI. But as recently as last year, eMarketer did a survey and found that 78%, so almost 4/5 of digital display ads are bought using AI. And I think when you look at the different applications, whether it's pricing or something else, so obviously Uber uses it for pricing, eBay uses it for pricing, Airbnb. When you look at the applications of AI, they have a couple of sort of key themes. One of them is that there's a lot of data, and so that you need a more powerful tool to deal with that large amount of data, and that large amount of data isn't necessarily simplified. So you can't just say, hey, weekends should be more expensive than weekdays, or weekends should be less expensive than weekdays. And part of the fact that you have a lot of data is also that trying to solve that problem would be very time consuming and very analytically intense. And so processes where you can sit down and have a month to figure it out. I mean, many of you listening to this probably work in a manufacturing business, right? If you set up a price list in January for the whole year, you've got months to think about how you're going to price the next year. So it's not getting that real-time feedback loop going isn't as important for you. But if you're a transportation company where you have, each day you get new reservations, things go in and out of service, right? You have competitors perhaps, right? Then it's a much more dynamic business, and you don't have the time to do the analysis, and there's too much to analyze. So that's a place where artificial intelligence can be really effective.
Excellent. Great examples. And what can you tell our listeners about what does AI do that their current solution doesn't do? Can you talk them through that a little bit?
Sure. So I think some people listening will have a current solution, right? You might use one of the big legacy vendors. You might have an in-house built system. And I think for us, when we look at people looking to use AI, that's a great place to start from, right? You don't want to start from a dead stop where you've never worked on your pricing or you've never really thought about doing any kind of pricing, value-based pricing or any other sort of methodology. Somebody, the CEO or the VP of sales made up the prices and they've just been that way for 5 years. But that's much better to start from a place where you have a current solution and you're trying something already. I think that the main thing that AI does is it changes the way you do pricing in a very fundamental way. So most systems today, all of them to my knowledge, separate analysis and action, right? So you'll analyze the data, you'll say, oh, it looks like we have more demand on Saturday than we expected, or looks like we have less seats, cars, hotel rooms, whatever that example is. Looks like we have less than we thought we would have this Saturday, so we should raise the price. And then as a second step, you go to your system of record and you raise the price. So a lot of software now automates this, which is incredibly useful, right? So you can either, follow your competitors up or down, or automatically raise your price when you get to a certain level of utilization. In a manufacturing business, you might automatically give somebody an approval if they're looking for a pricing exception, or automatically offer a discount, right? But in all those cases, right, there was an analysis that like this customer segment should get a discount, or this Saturday is going to be busy and therefore we should raise the price. And then there was this action that was separate of going to the system, raising the price or pushing the new price in. What AI does is integrates those. So the analysis you're doing is the same thing that's driving and setting the price. And because it does that, when it gets feedback on how that price did, it then learns from that feedback. So the humans don't have to learn, oh, hey, on Saturday I raised the price and all of a sudden bookings came to a screeching halt and I had to lower it again the next day, right? Instead, the AI learns that, and the next time that happens, whether or not it was a Saturday, maybe it's a Tuesday, right? It'll understand that pattern. It'll learn from what it did the last time, and it'll do something slightly different, or maybe a lot different. So that's like the key difference is that it integrates analysis and action. It does a couple other things as a result of that. So it puts the intelligence closer to the customer decision. So even if you are a manufacturer and you're dealing with exceptions, right? Being able to put that in Salesforce or in your CRM or in a mobile app or right next to the salesperson, so they can get that answer right away, and it's not emotional, it's data driven. That'll turn your proposals around faster. That'll win you business just from being fast. And for a lot of business, it's also much more granular, right? So before you might have bucketed a lot of customers into your large customer bucket, right, or your large North American customer bucket. And and AI is able to get down to a much more granular level, whether that's by customer segments or whether that's by products or regions or time. But you're able to be a lot more precise in your pricing. And finally, I think it's worth saying, compared to systems where there was a lot of human involvement in the analysis, it's a lot easier to set up and manage going forward. So we've heard stories of people using legacy vendors, spending millions of dollars in license fees and setup, and then having to hire 30 people to actually operate the software. And I think it's great that pricing teams are growing, but I think if you're hiring, going from 0 to 30 That means maybe there was more efficiency you could have gotten out of the software, and AI is the kind of software that gives you that efficiency. So those are the ways. Those are the ways that it is different, and it is very different than current solutions.
hmm I had a follow-up question just by something you said that, pricing organizations are growing. In your opinion, do you think that pricing organizations might begin to shrink the more people become more comfortable with AI, since it's more, it's easier to set up and manage and you may not need as many people? What's your opinion?
That's a great question, and that's one that a lot of CEOs actually ask us. Not only the pricing team, but also the CEO. And I think some of them want to hear us say that they're going to be able to reduce their costs in their pricing team, and some people don't like that and want to continue to grow their team. I think there's a lot of evidence to this now. So I think a couple years ago it was harder to say, but if you look at some of the larger pricing teams, Uber,
hmm
even though they use AI heavily, is over 100 people. And
Mm-hmm.
so, just because you're using AI as a technology doesn't mean you skimp on resources you have to manage that
Sure.
technology. Another
hmm
example is Auto, the German company, Auto.de. They brought in AI to manage their inventory and automatically reorder inventory. And one concern was that if the AI was reordering the inventory, you wouldn't need all the people that used to
hmm
have the job of reordering inventory. And what ended up happening was it grew their business by so much and was so successful that they hired more people to make it even better, and also to manage their larger business. So I
Okay.
think I think right now where AI is, it's not a silver bullet or a crystal ball or something. It's not going to solve all of your pricing problems. It
hmm
can solve a lot that you haven't solved, and it can give you a foundation to really grow your business using
hmm
pricing really as a web competitive marketplace. But um,
Excellent.
but it still needs people, right? It still needs
Gotcha.
people to manage it, um, to improve it, to interface with the business. And somebody told me something that I think really stuck with me that really kind of fits with this theme, which was that artificial intelligence lacks common sense. Um,
Mhm.
and so, I think there are things that humans would notice that in AI, if that's not how it trained based on the data, like they might not notice. It's not going to know that that if you're selling, for example, right, you're a Cisco
Mhm.
or one of the big network routing companies, right? It's not going to
Mhm.
know that Twitter is a thing back in 2006, and you should really discount for Twitter because they're going to
Right.
grow a lot, and so you want to lock them into your platform, and almost giving the stuff away for free in 2006 is going to mean you're going to have a multi-million-dollar customer,
Mhm.
15-20 million-dollar customer in 5 years. Um, the AI may not know that because it doesn't have that sort of common sense ability that a human
Sure.
does.
Mhm.
And that's what a lot of people don't realize. So I think there's a huge role for pricing people, and I think one of the things AI does is make them much more efficient and much better, so you get more ROI from your pricing organization, and that
Mhm.
justifies growing it.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you. That was awesome. Um, Talk about moving into who and who doesn't sell AI. Does everyone sell artificial intelligence?
That's a great question. So we've been doing this since for almost 5 years now, and back then nobody sold AI. We actually talked about supervised machine learning, and AI was a thing that wasn't sort of in the market, even though they are the same thing. Um, Now every company's figured out that people want to buy AI, so everybody's hung a flag in front of their booth at trade shows like the Pricing Society conference coming up that says, "Hey,
Mhm.
talk to us about AI." And
Mhm.
most of those companies do not actually do AI, and I think it's really hard for uh, CTOs and CIOs and heads of pricing to really to really know what to ask and how to figure out, is this company actually doing AI?
Mhm.
Or is this company just saying they do II and and really just doing a basic regression in Excel or something? Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I think that it's the key things to look for are buzzwords. So companies that are selling AI but don't actually do it, they'll talk about things like neural nets and all the latest sort of buzzwords that come out of Google. Those don't work for businesses. So a neural net and that kind of technology is not going to help you if you run a manufacturing company, even if you run Uber. I mean, neural nets are great for identifying images and faces and signal data, but for anything pricing related, not the right technology. Anybody who spends a lot of time on that sort of buzzword stuff is not actually an expert in the field. Another way to tell is if there's a lot of services fees involved, right? AI is actually, if you have it right, I mean, I know from Perfect Price's experience, we work with global multi-billion-dollar companies, and we can show you results in 2 to 4 weeks. And they may not be perfect, but we're able to train the model and have you looking at something that resembles reality as you know it and have an opinion about it within 2 to 4 weeks because of AI, because of the way AI works. If a company is saying it's going to take 4 to 6 months to get set up and going, that means they're probably using people and different approaches than AI. So hope that helps.
No, that definitely does. So you've given us a lot of information, Alex, and we certainly appreciate it. And for our listeners who want more of the same, Alex, as I said, will be featured at our upcoming pricing conference as one of our breakout speakers. And Alex, are there any parting words for our listeners? We're overall kind of concluding thoughts on artificial intelligence.
Yeah, well, I think the thing that we like to tell people the most, and we'd love it if people took away from this, is that 2 things really. One, artificial intelligence is here, and it might be a really good tool for your business. And the only way to find that out is to try it. And I don't say that as someone selling the software. I just say that as someone who's worked in artificial intelligence for 7 or 8 years now. That the only way to figure out if it's going to solve the problem you have, the challenge you have to throw at it, is to try it out. And so I think that's really the most important thing. And it's okay if it isn't a good solution for your problem. It's not going to solve everybody's problem. And it's important to find employees or a vendor or technology providers who are willing to be honest with you and say, look, AI may not be the right solution for this particular problem.
Excellent. Well, Alex, thank you again for joining us and sharing your insight on artificial intelligence. Please visit the Professional Pricing Society's website at pricingsociety.com for additional information of all of our offerings. Also, as a reminder, we are headed to Chicago for our annual Spring Pricing Workshops and Conference, May 1st through the 4th, where Alex will present on this very same topic. We hope to see you there. Get social with the Professional Pricing Society and subscribe to our blog, thepricingauthority.com, and follow us on Twitter at Pricing Society. Alex, do you want to throw out your Twitter handle so that the listeners can follow you as well?
Sure, yeah. Please follow us. I'm at The Generalist, and the company is at Perfect Price Inc. We're also on LinkedIn, where we post a lot at Perfect Price Inc. as well, and perfectprice.com.
Excellent. And thank you all for listening, and stay tuned for the Professional Pricing Society's monthly pricing podcast, where other industry experts will join us to share their pricing best practices. Alex, thanks, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Thank you, Lisa. Bye.
Bye-bye.